I want to let our listeners know that there's a way that you can help support our organization. If you go to our website at www.thisisfailingjustice.com, scroll all the way to the bottom of the homepage, and there you're going to find a donation link. Any amount you can donate will help us further our mission and reach more people. We believe it's really important to keep spreading the word about the issues that are plaguing our criminal justice system and how we can make it better. It is crucial to keep fighting for the change, and with your support, we can do just that.
This is Failing Justice.
Good evening, America. Welcome to the Failing Justice podcast. I am your host, as always, Justin Carlson. Welcome to the show. I'm glad you're all here. Want to make sure everybody can hear us. If anybody's watching, we had a little bit of a glitch there in the beginning. I'm not sure what was going on. So hopefully everybody can hear us, but welcome to the show. And we are live downtown Dallas at the Hello Studios on floor number 9. And I'm glad to be here. It's been a really good week. Been a really busy week. Super pumped about the weather. The weather's great. Love the overcast. It's real cool. Spent a little bit of time outside before coming in here this evening and got to enjoy it a little bit. So, and then of course, for those that are baseball fans, baseball playoffs are full swing. I went to the Rangers game last night. I'm not a Rangers fan, but I went to the Rangers game last night and got to watch them win and to move on to the next round. My Dodgers are 0-2. They play tonight. They've got to win 3 straight to make it to the championship game. I don't know what's going on with those guys. Fingers crossed that they can win 3 straight. And then the Astros are my other team, which is why I couldn't really root for the Rangers. They are also playing tonight. Won't be able to hit any of that up till after the show. But I love baseball playoff time. It's actually one of my favorite times of the year, favorite sports. So had to talk about it. Go Dodgers, go Astros. And anyway, so I just want to go ahead and dive into the show. I have a guest with me tonight. I'm really excited about it. It's got Preston Green Jr. here with me tonight. Preston,
hey man,
say hello. So Preston and I go pretty far back through a series of crazy events. I can actually say that Preston is. I consider him my best friend. We've been through a lot. Our relationship was it was real strange how it started off. We were instant friends back in I guess I met him in like 2015, 2016, something like that. He was we were police officers together in Gladewater, Texas, and as the years have carried on, we actually work together now again. He's active law enforcement, which is kind of cool to have another active law enforcement member of law enforcement on the show to give different perspectives. I know I've had a lot of guys that's gotten in the field and gotten out, but Preston and I actually work together now, and it's kind of cool how our relationship has come full circle. And I'm super glad that that he's here tonight. So we have a love-hate relationship. We act like we're I guess brothers.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. I was going to ask you if you notified the studio here to have security on standby, because good possibility we might get in a tussle.
We literally may get into an argument tonight, which make this show really interesting for everybody that's watching, if we're being honest. I mean, sometimes we take a little bit. Sometimes we argue it out, but then we usually come to our senses and usually find some common ground, but it is a real possibility that we could end up getting an argument tonight. I also have to point out too, we're both wearing polos tonight. I would like to say this is his fault for that. For being honest, I have to.
I don't understand how that's my fault.
I mean, you wanted to wear that polo and be comfy, which I don't have a problem with it. It's a little different from what we've been doing, so I want to let everybody know that this was your fault.
We didn't come in there suit and tie.
Yeah.
Well,
it's all right though. It's all right. I'm actually comfortable because sometimes it gets kind of hot in here. So, but no, man. So I want you to introduce yourself. Talk a little bit about your career, where you've been, what you've done, what you want to do, stuff like that, man.
Yeah. Well, first, thanks for having me. Really, you've been asking me to come on the show for a little while, and obviously we get busy. My life is super busy, as you know, with the PD and then family. But I'm glad to be here. I'm really glad to be able to support you and your show. I think it's a good cause, and you're going in the right direction. Didn't really follow the sports stuff though in the intro there because I know I don't know much about sports, but
I know you don't. And that's disappointing. Our friendship could be that much greater if you
go to baseball games.
Yeah, if you knew about this.
Yeah, I had no clue what you were talking about. But no, I appreciate the introduction. Preston Green. I've been in law enforcement for a little over 6 years now. Started out in Gladewater with you. Man, I'd like to say that my career has been very, very interesting. I relate it to being on a roller coaster ride.
Oh yeah.
So I think I was at Gladewater just for right under a year, and that's when I, got out for a little bit. Ended up moving up here to North Texas. Landed my feet. Ended up actually stayed out of law enforcement for about 6 months, and wasn't really sure if I was gonna get back into it. I think I didn't have a negative experience from Gladewater. I wasn't, didn't have a negative feelings towards law enforcement necessarily, but more so didn't think that I was good enough to get back in law enforcement. So I was real hesitant, ended up just going in actually in the restaurant industry for a little bit, and until I met a guy in the gym, started talking about Pilot, my current city. I forgot that rule. We try not to.
I'll tell you what. I would like to say this. Anything discussed on this show, in any form or fashion, we don't talk about where we work. Just simply because, listen to all the stories, right, that we've told over, over the last couple of months. Law enforcement can be a very retaliatory profession, and that's just the truth. And so that's why you've never heard me say. So when I started this podcast, I was out of law enforcement and had really no inkling that I was going to go back in. So this podcast was started before that. And so when it looked like I was going back into law enforcement, I just said, look, that doesn't stop my mission. That doesn't stop right and wrong. That doesn't stop, trying to affect change. And so I said, I'm just going to keep the podcast. And to be quite frank, I've said it 1,000 times, to hell with what anybody thinks. I don't care if it chaps the Pope or my current agency. To me, right is right and wrong is wrong. And just as I've said all this time, to effect change, we have to start having the conversations here. So, of course, when you and I started the show, obviously off camera, we've been talking about it all day, like, not to reveal where we work until things change, because I feel like we're just, I equated it to dipping my toe in the water, seeing what the ripple effect looks like. Until things change, I think it's just best that we don't do that, which is why I haven't done it. And so here's my deal. If it comes out, because it's just second nature, it rolls off the tongue, it comes out, But at the end of the day, if somebody has a problem, if our agency had a problem with this, I would have to have respectful conversation and wonder why, why that would be. In my heart of hearts, I don't think that they would, right?
No.
But I've drawn the line in the sand, and for anybody, the line's there. And so anyway, I just wanted to piggyback off of that because so his name's Preston, but I call him PCG. That's his nickname for me. So PCG over here almost slipped up, but it's totally fine, man. I just as for the audience, so the audience knows, hey, like, why, because our views may not necessarily represent the views of our city or our agency, and that's why we just don't mention it.
So, no, kind of cutting into my introduction here, but I mean it's a good point, because for all the reasons why you just said that we wouldn't reveal our agencies, or because some people may have problems, not necessarily our agency, but just in general the society that we're in, the times, law enforcement officers are hesitant to speak their mind. Mm-hmm. and just be open and honest and have conversation. And so thanks for kind of recovering for me there. But
no problem, man.
What I would say is I think I'm very blessed. I'm blessed to be at the agency that I currently am at, because I truly feel that I work for an agency, an organization that is striving to develop a different culture, and we do have a different culture, and we're comfortable being who we are, in our own skin, just being human. That I've never really had to watch, maybe just revealing where I work or something like that. But that's not necessarily the case for every other agency out there, and for other officers who, you told me stories about people you've asked to come on. Maybe they get hesitant about getting on the show and just talking about reality and the world we live in, the challenges we face as officers. It's tough. It's a tough time. It's a tough profession, and I'll be honest, it's a toxic profession.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother subject, but
and it may come up. I mean, to be quite honest with you guys, I don't want to keep interrupting you, but we usually I have and I do have some show notes here, but I didn't put a lot of. Usually I prepare for shows, but tonight we didn't prepare a lot, because a lot of the views that I have, you and I share.
Yeah,
for the most part, like we share the same views, which is why I even ended up where you were, because of the views that we do share, the culture that we're trying to create. And so I lost where I was going with that, but that's why I didn't put a lot of preparation into this show. I mean, I don't want to say I just lackadaisy. Like, I put some preparation, but you and I have these conversations all the time. Like, not even daily, right?
Yeah.
So that's just kind of a heads up for the audience too. I mean, we do want to talk, one thing we do want to talk about is the whole Israel-Palestinian conflict, and we'll get into that. But just let everybody know we're here to talk, to have real raw conversation. This isn't scripted. This isn't really planned. So anyway, I just wanted to put that out there too, just based off of what you said.
I guess I'll circle back to my introduction.
Yeah. So circle back.
Circle back. So I've been at my current agency for a little over 5 years, and the way I describe it is I'm there where I work. I'm on a mission to culturally change the law enforcement profession, right? So, and that's what really drives me is my organization and the people that I work with. So, that's a very brief, I guess, introduction of it. But I mean, there's not much else to me. I work and hang out with the family. I think I'm like a lot of other cops. Pour pretty much all my time into work.
Yeah, so. and I can say that you do because, I this is such a fine line, such a touchy subject, because here we are, truly trying to change, like you said, culture, because that's what all of this just kind of boils down to, the majority of it being culture. But I tell you all the time, like I feel like you just work too much. Although I see I see what you're trying to do. But sometimes, man, this profession can just suck the life right out of you. And that's why I always tell you, man, like, hey, I feel like you need to, take some time off, go spend time with your kids, your wife, because it's if we can't take care of ourselves personally, it's like a tiered umbrella thing. Like, you have to take care of yourself, and then you also have to, like, the agency, the culture has to take care of itself. Because if those two things aren't right, when you go out here and we deliver police service, that's not going to be right. So I will agree. I mean, you pour a lot into it, and that's the truth as far as why I came to work where you are, is because over the years, like we've talked on the phone. I in a way, I feel like I had a vested interest in that department anyway, because the last 5 years, how many times have you called me and said, hey, this is what's going on, like, this is what we're doing, what do you think about this? I feel like we've kind of just had those conversations. I've gave you advice. You gave me advice. Like, we're both really dumb in some of the decisions that we make, and we're able to just talk through those things with each other. And so I feel like that's why I came to work at Pilot Point, was because, that's, based off of what you were trying to do and what you're trying to build. So, I'm happy to be there, man. I'm happy to work with you. This is going to be a real comical show. I can already tell you right now, it's going to be. Oh my gosh, good times.
You just this is why we'd be fighting too, because you just spent like 5 minutes lecturing me on on that, and then there you go. So
yeah, I know. I wasn't lecturing you. I was just letting the audience know, like, hey, this is why we don't say it. Is because of these reasons.
So kind of getting sidetracked, but like you said, we didn't really have certain topics to talk about. So I will say this, that I think that it's so easy for us to talk about where we work and, support it. And because I think that's a positive thing, right? So we sit around all the time. We talk about, the current culture in law enforcement. Cops feel like they work in toxic environments. Well, I think that if we weren't doing something right where we currently are, then we wouldn't just, it wouldn't be so easy for us to reveal it, right?
Right.
It's like when any time in life when you're ashamed of something, you don't reveal it. You try as hard as you can to keep it close to you, right? And play your cards close. When you're proud of something,
yeah, you want to talk about it.
It's easy.
Yeah.
And so I think it's a positive thing, because I am proud of where I work, our organization, where we've been, where we currently are, and where we're going to go. And proud of the people that I work with. I think that we have a really good group of people that really love this job for the right reasons. We can sit around all day and talk about all the things we do wrong on the job. But when it's so easy to talk about all the things that we do right, that's a sign that you're moving in the right direction. That's my mission. That's the only reason I'm still doing it today. It's what keeps me motivated, So
yeah, and never once have. We talked about this when I was getting hired on. Like, what do you think they will think? My I've always stood on the fact that at the end of the day, like I've said this and I'll say it again, I will quit tomorrow if somebody has a problem with what I do here, because this is important. I think that in no way has anybody where we work indicated like that this is a problem or have threatened in any kind of way. But I agree that this will, I feel like, even if it's just a little bit, this will bring some sort of change.
Yes.
And
what you're doing here.
Yes.
The show.
The show. And when we have minds like ours, not that we're perfect. I mean, Jesus Christ,
brother, I'm far from perfect.
If we were to sit here and talk about all of our impurities and all of our flaws, that could be a show in and of itself, probably like a whole series. But when I say minds like ours, I haven't met just too many cops. Honestly, and I don't want to offend anybody. If there's cops listening and they get offended by this statement, I don't mean it offensive, but it's just the truth. Like, I haven't met many people within law enforcement that I can sit down. I can name the ones that I know that share these same thoughts and these beliefs, but I just haven't had many, and I think that's why. One of the reasons why I wanted to come to work where you were is because we think a lot alike when it comes to law enforcement and the justice system and, all of these things. We think a lot alike. And so that's why I wanted to come there. And I feel like by being there, we are able to start working on that culture. Like the guys that we have working with us, the guys and gals are, they're all great. I feel like they share the same thoughts, the same vision. They see the path, that we're trying to take. And so, yeah. So a little bit, going back to, and not being negative, but you said it's easy to talk about the negative things, and it is. So let's just say, hey, like, how has law enforcement impacted you on a positive level, since you've been in, whether it been before, now, anything specific that you can speak on that comes to your mind that's been positive for you?
Yeah, that's I think there's plenty of things that I could say that have been positive. Really, I think that the biggest reward out of being in our profession, doing the job, is the impact we get to make. I know it's cliche, right? Like, it's the most, everybody always asks and goes up to a cop, well, why'd you get into law enforcement? 9 times out of 10, the answer is going to be to help people. And everybody thinks, well, that's not really it, right? Like, there's got to be more to it. And I tend to ask myself that a lot, mainly because a lot of times when we interview people to bring people on and bring them into the organization, bring them into law enforcement, maybe they're straight out of the academy, or maybe they've been doing it for 10, 15 years. A lot of the times that'll be a normal routine question that gets asked on an interview board with the chiefs, maybe when you're just, going for a ride along to see if you even want to apply for an agency. That question gets asked, well, why do you want to be a cop, or why do you want to be in law enforcement? And a lot of people think that there's more to it than just to help people. But I really don't think there is. What I do think there is a big difference in is, I think that reason is there deep down. I just think it takes a while for you to realize that that's the reason you're in it. And it's usually not necessarily something positive that makes you realize that, if that makes sense. So I think that's the most positive thing that has come out of being on the job, is realizing that the reason I'm doing it is solely to help people, whether it's to help the citizens that we serve or the people that we work with. I think right now that's just as important, because I think that collectively, in the profession, that we're just as broken on the inside as everything's broken on the outside. To fix it, we gotta come to a common realization of why we're there.
Yeah, and it's like you told me when I was struggling with making the decision of going back. I was struggling hardcore, and that's one thing that you told me. You told me it recently too, probably 2-3 weeks ago. You were like, look, like you're back in it. You're back in the fold, back in the routine, but because man, like I was so jaded those 2 years being out. It was bad because some really bad shit happened to me. So like, I didn't want anything to do with law enforcement again. And you knew that. You knew the deep, dark conversations about the things that I went through, and how it disgusted me to look at cops. It really did. That's just the freaking truth. Because my experience within the profession for the most part, especially the last 3 years of my career. I always say back in the Gladewater days, like I'm sitting over here making $34,000, happy as a lark, because look what our culture was. I mean, our culture was just healthy. And then when I went to Palestine, it's like that dark storm cloud moved in, and I couldn't see the clear, sunny, crystal skies that I had once experienced. Like everything just became so dark. I mean, and a lot of the stories and the crap that I experienced and personal things, and like, so when I was coming back to get into law enforcement, I was just I was scared. I was still like hurt and angry. And you really talked me through that. And even now, even to this very day, like, we still have conversations, and you say things like, it was, I can't remember exactly what you said. I'm paraphrasing, but it was a couple of weeks ago, and you said something along the lines of, I'm glad you got back in it because you're looking at things through a totally different lens, and because of all the things you've experienced, and getting out of law enforcement and then coming back in, you have a total different viewpoint. And you told me that because of that, you think that I am able to truly affect the change that's needed, and I agree with that. I appreciate you saying that. And I agree with that because it's taken me so much time through going through all those things, running my business, starting this show, coming back to work full time, traveling back and forth from here to Tyler, like just so many different, all of these things came at me kind of at one time. And, you reminded me though, like it's like you told me what you told me, and I was like, you're right. Like, everything that I went through, even though it was negative, it was for a reason. And I fully believe that reason was failing justice, one of the reasons. And the second reason would be to bring these changes into the profession. And it's not widely accepted right now. That's just facts. It's not, and I don't know when it will be. But again, toe in the water, ripple effect. Let's see what it does. And so, I appreciate the fact that you said that to me. Because, it helped me kind of, always got to keep myself in check and reset. And that was one of the things that really helped me. And it's funny too, because, you and I were talking, like, I trained you. The first time you got in a cop car was with me. Yeah.
And first day on the job.
And some of the things, and I'm not tooting my own horn by any means. It's just, these things mean a lot to me. Like the things that you said to me about how, the reason you think the way you think, the reason you police the way you police, and you said that was because of me. And so I always try to think back on these things, not to, where I have to grease my head, walk through the door, not for that, but because, like, that means a lot, dude. Oh. It does. Truly.
Oh. I mean, it's the truth. It also proves a good point that, yeah, you were my FTO when I started, right? Fresh boot. I mean, I had, prior to being in law enforcement, I had been in public safety on the fire side for a little bit. Other than that, like, I'm going to tell you right now, before even signing up to go to the police academy, I never even thought about being a cop. Like, it never crossed my mind. So for somebody like me, 21, 22 years old, coming straight out of the police academy, getting my first job, that's it right there. So when we start talking about change, how can we change? How can we improve? How can we make things better? We have to stop looking sometimes at the big picture and start looking at the small things that actually impact the officer, right? We're providing that foundation, and that, that's it right there. The first time I ever got in a cop car, ever answered a radio call, ever pulled somebody over, ever responded to a domestic or disturbance was with you for the first 4 weeks. The way I observed you handle that impacted me for the rest of my career. It still does to this day. Those are the important things. Those are the things that we need to focus on as leaders in law enforcement, and as the next generation of leaders in law enforcement, is we have to focus on the things that impact the officer from day one. And that's it. In my opinion, an officer's first FTO, that's it. I mean, that a lot of times that FTO is responsible for setting the pace of that officer for the rest of their career, especially if they've never been introduced to it. I hadn't even been on a ride along when I became a cop.
I didn't realize that wasn't required.
Yeah. Well, I take that back. I rode out at Gladewater before I applied, but it was like 5 minutes. We won't disclose who. Because that obviously,
Yeah.
But yeah, so, I mean, you were my first FTO. I learned a lot. And I really think that, that is a major decision to make when it comes to change is what are we introducing the next generation of officers to? What are we bringing them into? You bring them into a toxic environment. You bring them into a work culture to where things are acceptable that shouldn't be acceptable. What do you expect? I don't think we'd expect for anything to ever get better, right? You bring them into an environment where you get judged on the things you've done in life and the mistakes you've made. All you can do from that point is expect. You can expect that your officers are going to go out and judge the public and community on the mistakes they're making. A majority of our interactions with the public are not necessarily, we're not getting called to hang out with people. I mean,
somebody made a mistake.
Made a mistake.
Sometimes really big.
So it's crucial that officers from the get-go get taught and understand that it's okay to make mistakes. It is. It's human. We're not perfect. I'm a faith-based man, so that drives it even more. Like, we were never created to be perfect.
And dude, that goes back. I don't shag calls very often, but that call that we went out on,
you really don't.
that call we went out on a couple weeks ago. And I saw you talking to one of the involved parties, and like, officers are just so quick to respond to these calls because, maybe they're hungry. Maybe there's a screen full of calls waiting. Maybe they just had a fight with their wife before they came to work. Who knows? But we respond to these calls, and sometimes we're quick and in a hurry to get them over with. Like, what does the law say? What's written in black and white? What are we going to do here? Okay, well, this is what happened. This is what we're going to do. Like, and what was cool about when I saw you interact on that call the other day, I was like, that was cool because you took a personal story, share it if you want. I don't expect you to, probably won't. We didn't get time for all the mistakes that we've made in life here, but you took a personal story, where you were in a dark time, you were in a situation, and it just completely applied to that man's situation. And, and I'm not dogging. I don't want to dog anybody else, but like while everybody was leaving, you're sitting there telling this man, hey, look, I was kind of in a situation like this, and this is what happened. This is what I did. This is how it impacted me. And, I was just sitting there watching you, and I was like, man, like that right there, like spending that time, like you didn't have to sit there and do that. Like what happens a lot of times is our officers they just handle these calls because I got to hurry up and get to the next one. And the fact that you sit there and you took your time and you told this person, hey, this is what I experienced, this is what I did. You shared that personal story, and he was like, yeah, thank you for telling me that. And that's why the reason I talk about that is because that goes back to making mistakes, as human beings. Like, just because we wear badges, just because you see all the officers out here and they wear badges, it's a fine line of trying to highlight the misdeeds that are done out here, because I feel like we do need to talk about them. But at the same time, I don't want the public to think, and I feel like that's what happens. Like, we've lost touch with reality. Like, the public sees a misdeed or, something that's not just, and they see that and they're like, all cops are that way. And dude, I have to sit here and admit, I'd be lying if I wasn't. That's where I kind of was, for that short period of time that I was out of law enforcement. And so making mistakes, some things you can recover from them, some things you can't, just depending on how things play out. But using those mistakes that you make and implementing them into the job and how you can try and help somebody else because this is what you went through,
Yeah. I could take away a lot from, or really spin into several different conversations based on things that you just said.
Which is why I don't have a lot of show notes, because I knew exactly what this was going to be. So
I'm, messing with this microphone a little bit because
it's all right. I don't know what to do with my hands.
Yeah. No, I think you're exactly right. And that goes back to kind of why I am where I am. Because when I applied at Pilot Point, I didn't think that I would, one, get back into law enforcement. Two, I didn't think that really I didn't have a whole lot of experience, so I was worried about being accepted again, right? Because Gladewater was a healthy work environment. I think that we had a good group of people. I mean, I learned a lot, and it really wasn't. Every organization's gonna have toxic times, but it's toxic all the time. So, but I was, I really was worried about other organizations, and especially it was so intimidating when I came to DFW area, because I was like, well, there's large organizations. You go on and look to get hired somewhere, and you see all these, requirements. And then you see a list of disqualifications immediately, and you're like, well, yeah, that's not going to happen. Like it's immediate. So I never really got my hopes up. And then when I went in for my interview and sat down with a group of guys who just really made me feel like that they were doing the job for the right reason, and we're human, that has stuck with me to this day and is a big part of what I continue to try to build our culture off of and into, right? Like, my mistakes don't define me, right? My mistakes define who I become as a better man.
Right.
Anybody who thinks that perfection is a possibility, I'd be really concerned, because nobody is perfect.
But that's the world that we live in. Was it today we were talking about, like, or maybe it was yesterday? You just see, like, in the days of social media, the news, everything is just immediately available. Somebody's mistakes are just immediately available. Something can happen right here in Dallas right now, and it could be live streamed in Dubai. And our mistakes are just, they're just put on display. And so, is everything good?
Yeah, I need to step out for a second.
Good. Our mistakes are just on display for the world to see. And I think that with that being said, it's so hard for officers sometimes to recover from the mistakes that they make. And I hate that he had to step out for a minute. He's very busy, by the way. He does a lot of things for our agency. A lot of things, because we are a smaller agency, and he also has like 56 kids or something like that. So I don't know what the deal is, but my point is, and I may bring it back up when he comes back in, and I've said this, is that I don't think that I don't think you should be allowed to be a police officer in the United States of America until you're 25 years old. And the reason for that, and I know he can attest to this, because I know the things that I did when I was, some of the biggest mistakes that I've made in life were when I was between 21 and 25 years old. Yeah, I'm not gonna sit here and talk about those things. Obviously, I am writing a book, so some of those things may be in that book. Give you guys a chance to when it comes out, to go get it, and then you can just look at my aired dirty laundry. But there's so many things that happen at such a young age, and that you go and you say, "Hey, I'm going to be a cop," at 21 years old. And you have $1,200 in your bank, and you just think you're bank rolling and 10 feet tall and bulletproof, and you can do anything. And so a lot of mistakes that happen, at least in my experience personally, and being in law enforcement for as long as I've been in, I've seen that the majority of these mistakes that officers make, on the lower end of things have happened at a very young age. And they get in and they make those mistakes, and then those mistakes can easily ruin that officer's career. And sometimes, like I said earlier, there are some things you can recover from. There are some things you cannot recover from. But now that you're back in here, and I want you to hear what I'm saying, because I know you can relate to this big time, is that I was just sitting here talking about, we were talking about mistakes and how easily it is to make a mistake at a young age as a cop, and then that mistake can ruin your career forever. And even if you get back into law enforcement, it can just follow you forever. And so I was on the topic of, I don't think you should be a cop until you're 25 years old.
I was thinking about that today. On my way up here, the drive is the traffic. Drive. So I was thinking about things that might come up, and I remember you had mentioned that to me. I think I'll tell you what, actually. We were sitting there fighting after a call, not fighting, arguing about after a call after you first got here. And you just got back into it. It's like 2 weeks you're back into the game, right? And you're obviously still feeling a certain type of way from getting out and what you experienced. So, we're hashing out like we usually do. And that usually leads to other conversations about what's wrong with our profession and why we need to change it. And you had mentioned that. You were like, well, I just don't think that. I forget what age, 25?
25, yeah.
Yeah, you were like, I don't think we should be cops till you're 25. And I was really, really thinking about that today. And I'm, how that would work if that's maybe the answer to one of the problems, because I agree with that. And then I struggle with also the idea of you serve in the military at 18, go off to war and serve your country. You can't serve at home type situation, right?
But look how widely, not to interrupt you, because I want you to finish your thought, but look how widely messed up. Like now, I think you can't buy cigarettes until you're 21. But at 18 years old, you can give me a fully auto M16 and send me to freaking Iraq and just let me kill people. Like, everything is just so backwards. I mean, if you look at it from that perspective, because I agree. Like, so you're 18 and you can go fight a world war, but you damn sure can't smoke. You pick up a cigarette, you're getting a ticket. Like,
yeah. And that's where I start to think that some of the issues that we see currently, internally, right? So in-house and within organizations, some of the issues that we struggle with is generational change. Mm-hmm. Like, generations are changing. And in my opinion, this is my opinion, and I'm not knocking, any organizations or any leaders out there, because I truly, believe and try to have that faith that people who are serving in leadership roles and law enforcement are trying to do it for the right reasons, even if they're misguided sometimes. But I don't think that today's leadership leading organizations is necessarily open to adapting with the generations that are coming onto the workforce nowadays. Because there's a night and day difference in today. Currently, there is a night and day difference in somebody who's been on the job 30 years, looking at retirement, and somebody coming on straight out of the academy.
Oh, yeah.
Who's 21. The generational differences there is it's.
So let me ask you this, and I just had this thought while you were talking. Oddly enough, I hadn't thought about it before. I have thought about toxic generational leadership and how it's clearly a problem. But my question is, do you think that it's going to take a little bit longer? I mean, this sounds really kind of crass and messed up, but like, do you think that it's going to take us some time? Because you don't fix things overnight, clearly, especially at this capacity. But do you think it's going to take some time to, for lack of a better term, I guess, just kind of let those people, that toxic generational leadership, those 20, 25 year, 30-year people who are toxic. I'm not saying everybody, obviously. I don't want to group anybody, but we know very well that there are some problems. And so when I'm talking about the problem children, do you think it's going to take some time for us, because those people, they're not going to change? You know, statistics show, there's studies on these things. People don't, especially when you've been in a certain profession. Number one, it's hard for people to change in general as they get older, just, you know, on a personal level. But then when you've been indoctrinated in certain cultures for so long, getting, you know, that's like asking a Christian to be an atheist or an atheist to be a Christian. Like, I think it's going to, me personally, and I want to ask you, like, I think it's going to take some time for these people who've been sitting in this toxicity for decade after decade. I feel like they're going to have to go away, just to put it bluntly. And again, not I mean everybody.
Yeah.
I'm saying I'm speaking of the problem children. Like that's what I'm talking about. The ones that don't want to change, that say, "Hey, you know, it's been this way for 30 years, 20 years, 25. We're going to keep doing it this way."
The reality, obviously, yes. You know, it will take time to see significant change, but I don't necessarily. And I think this is another issue, is that we just sometimes we give up easy, right?
It's
fighting it.
Yeah,
we give up easy because it's hard. It's you had a guest on. It really, the show really opened my eyes when you had Richard Miles on. When I listened to the podcast,
I think it opened it opened my eyes.
So I'm listening to that podcast. You've been on me for probably a month or so about, you listen to my podcast and you're gonna come on, and so it's like it's a Sunday. It's like a Sunday. I'm driving back from picking my oldest up from her mom's back in East Texas. So it's a 3-hour drive. I usually listen to audiobooks or podcasts. I'm driving back listening to this. She's passed out in the back seat, right? So I'm listening to this podcast, and there was so much that he said when he was talking about law enforcement and the culture and how thick it runs, that opened my eyes and made me realize I agree with everything that he was saying. Like, he was spot on, but it reassured me that what we're doing now is helping to guide in a different direction on a small scale. So I think that, yes, it will take time for certain generations to exit the workforce, because we have this new generation coming into the workforce that is completely different, right? But I think that there's lots of things that we can do in between to not be just the ship out at the sea with the anchor, just sitting there, just waiting. I think that there's things that we can do now, and a part of it is having tough conversations and, being open about it. And it's going to take more than one or two people doing it because I really do. I go back to when I was talking about how, the biggest impact of my career was the foundation of when I was in FTO, it's just going to take, you're going to have to come at it from multiple approaches. And
here's another problem too, man. And I just thought of this, like, the police academies, I feel like that should be a big focal point, because like what happens is these 20, 30, 35-year-old vets, they leave.
They retire and then go teach.
They go freaking teach
at the
police academy. Oh. And that right there, they could be completely toxic, and they take that toxicity and they take it right to the police academy, and they've got, 20, 30, 40 cadets sitting in front of them, and that's what they're giving them. They're giving them curriculum. Like, they have to sit here and read black and white, but then for a minute they shut the black and white down. Let me tell you how we did it. Like, that's what happens.
So for a while, on the way here, I called you and I was like, what are we going to talk about? And you were like, I haven't put much together. I said, and you asked me what I want to talk about. And I'm like, well, I feel like up until this point, well, one, you haven't had any active duty law enforcement on the show.
It's hard.
It's hard because we've already covered why. So I feel like you hadn't had any active duty on, and you've covered a lot of issues that need to be addressed, but we haven't talked about how, right? And you admitted, just like I admit a lot of times too, it's like, how do we implement change? A lot of times the answer is, I don't know, right? Like, you don't know where to begin. And I think that's not just with our profession, that's any profession. Mm-hmm. But I think it's important to start talking about how we can and focus on it. Because here's the thing about working towards change is you're not going to get it right the first time. We're going to get it wrong a lot.
But there has to be some grace in that too. Like, going back to the public, there's been again, when you stepped out, I was talking about this, like social media, the news, how you can immediately highlight something that law enforcement does with no context. You can see this TikTok video or whatever, and yeah, it may be a real mistake. Like, it may be something legitimate that was bad, but the problem is because there is a lot of bad that goes on. Connecting with the public, right? Just as well as I know, we hop in a cop car tonight and we're out on patrol, and we, somebody commits a traffic offense and we stop them. Say it's somebody who's, been arrested 3-4 different times, lived a crappy life, maybe been to prison, whatever, like, and their For You pages are full of, cop misdeeds, and in their mind, they're automatically thinking, and I can't, dude, to a degree, I can't blame these people, because as a career-long law enforcement officer, that's a mouthful. When I interacted with cops, especially since starting this podcast, because I've gotten so much hate from it, like, if I feel uneasy around a cop that I'm maybe interacting with, because I've, speeding or whatever, maybe they know who I am. Can you imagine how these people are feeling, like, out here on the street? And so my point to all this, let me bring it home, is that those relationships there's so much trust right now that is broken. I mean, just totally broken. And to build that back up, that's not an easy task to do. Like that is a Mount Everest task that I feel like we gotta start climbing it. And I think we are progressing in some areas and doing better, but that is my fear.
We're not. No. I'm just going to get on it. I'm just going to get it out there.
Get on it.
We're not. We're not doing better. If we were doing better, then I don't think it would take. I've never thought. I'm 6.5 years into my career. I've been a cop since breakfast. Okay, I never would have thought that I'd be sitting here talking about all these issues and how I think that there's some easy solutions, but people are just close their eyes to it. Right? If we really were doing better, then I don't think, one, we'd be sitting here having this conversation. Two, I don't think that we would be seeing everything going on a national level and a society that we do. Everything is divided. You and I talked about this one time that, you said you didn't want to get political on the show. And I do agree with that, because it's a whole nother topic. As law enforcement officers, we are supposed to be the unbiased party. We've lost our ways with that. You can see it. You can see it clear as day. Mm-hmm. It's written all over the place. At a national level, state level, local level, politics is involved. So, one, we have to steer away from that. But everything is divided. The people are divided everything really that I talk about, I'm really focusing on law enforcement. So when I'm saying the people, I'm talking about the citizens, the community members, wherever you're working. The people are divided outside the house, and we're just as divided inside the house. And that's the problem.
Yes.
I think that there are people that get into this career wanting to do this profession they really do, out of the goodness of their heart. Like, I meet good cops all the time. Just good-hearted individuals, men and women that have passion for what they do. Like conversations that I have with them, that you can tell when you look in their eyes and they're talking about something. They're passionate about what they do. They're proud of what they do. They're proud to wear the badge. They're proud to wear the uniform. They'll tell everybody. The problem is that it takes me so long to tear that wall down, to have that conversation with that officer. That's how far we've gone. And it's not just, Can
I just say I think it's been said many times, but what all of those things boil down to? Leadership.
We're getting there. Yeah.
Leadership.
It's leadership. But it also has to do with trust. Everybody is divided right now. Everybody fears things, the fear of the unknown, of news and the media doesn't help. I mean, and a lot of times people don't, understand that, like, well, it's hard to see because I think our profession as a whole tries to give this image that we're perfect, we're perfection. We're chasing the wrong thing. You don't chase perfection. You aspire to do what's right. And doing what's right is not necessarily the same thing every time. So it's
I like that. And I like that.
It's so much more, and I don't think we're not doing better. You know why? Because of what you see. Happening, the divide in the communities, and then I see it all the time. You scroll LinkedIn, Facebook. I mean, you get emails. Officers are taking their own life, losing their jobs. Some out here getting arrested by self-inflicted wounds. Right? I tell a lot of people, a lot of the times when an officer makes a mistake, it's because of self-destruction. And nobody that they worked with cared about them enough to call them out or say, hey, you just seem like you're not okay. What can I do to help? Right? Because we've built these walls, we've divided ourselves, and we don't trust. I think one of the most important aspects of this job is to help build the trust out in the community, right? If you talk about peace, well, you can't have peace without trust.
Yeah,
and that's one of the. I would say that the number one issue in law enforcement today inside the house amongst our coworkers.
Well, it's like I told Gillen last week when Gillen was on the show, like, we will run into the absolute face of danger. Like, we will.
You're going to steal my line.
Whatever it is. Were you about to say that? Yeah, like we will run into we will round that corner of that dark alley not knowing what's on the other side. Like, we will run into a school building with shots actively ringing off. And because that's what, like, I feel like the majority of men and women are warriors and dedicated. The majority. I don't know what the percentage could be, but I would just say the majority are. And we ain't running into that PD.
No, we're running out.
We're running out.
We avoid the PD.
We're not running in there, vulnerable and ready to.
You just said the magic word, vulnerable, and that's why I say when I was telling you that when you had Richard Miles on here and he said that really gave me a lot of inspiration, and then reassured that I think we're on the right track of our current organization, because that's something that I preach about. And I didn't come out to this myself. Obviously, it took somebody else having to tell me this, right? But we're not vulnerable. We have to rebuild trust inside our organizations before we can attempt to rebuild that trust outside to the people that we serve. We don't have time to earn each other's trust.
Mm-mm.
We need to start implementing a culture that is built on vulnerability-based trust.
And that's what you tell people when they come in, and
that's what I say in interviews.
Yeah, like when you're interviewing people, I hear you say it all the time, and we're sitting there talking to applicants. You say, I can quote you. I've heard you say it so many times. I subscribe to vulnerability-based trust.
That's where.
Because coming in, I don't know you, you don't know me, but we are here, or should be here, for one common purpose. And it's not about you. The common purpose isn't about you. The common purpose isn't about me. The common purpose is about this profession and those out there that we are supposed to serve, that expect us to serve with, as Lady Justice is blindfolded. That's why I have Lady Justice in my logo. I built that myself, by the way. But, you know,
Canva.
Canva.
Shout out to Canva.
Yeah, shout out to
Get that
Canva.
prescription.
But like, we should come in, like you said, and be vulnerable to each other and trust each other and have a healthy house, a healthy foundation. That way, like you said, we can, and I love that you say that to people, because especially if you have people come in from other agencies, you know, that have experienced that extreme toxic.
It's called been beaten with a rolled up newspaper syndrome.
Yeah.
One too many times.
And when they hear you say that, they're like, what? Like, y'all
sounds good.
Y'all do that here? That's man. You have to give me a little bit before I start to believe that.
You have to prove that you mean it by your actions as leaders.
And that's the problem I feel like in leadership too, is so many of these leaders can come out here and they just say the darndest things to these applicants, whether they be fresh out of the academy or have worked at another place, you know. And I call it fluff. It's just fluff. It's just filler words. It doesn't mean anything. It's not accurate. It's not true. We as an organization, not our organization, but their organizations don't practice what they're saying. And it's just, it's the same thing. It's like a hamster wheel, just over and over and over and over. And I agree. That's what I love about our agency and what we are trying to do, because it has to start somewhere, right? So we have these conversations at these tables on this show, or, you know, but actually implementing these things are where the failure is. It's just fluff. Like, it's just, again, it's black and white. It's a mission statement on a wall. Like, that's blank. That wall's blank. It would look really good if we blew up a big mission statement. So let's come up with one, or, you know what I mean? Like, that's what and we're in the middle of changing our mission statement at our organization, and it's taken us.
It's hard. It's
taken us a while, and it should.
It should, and we should spend more time on it.
Yeah.
But that's also a reflection. I have mixed feelings about mission statements, but I think it's important, especially when you're bringing people in to an organization. But your organization, if you're doing it right, in my opinion, nobody who's to say my opinion is right or wrong, right? So I believe that if you're doing it right, then your organization will just it will reflect your mission. Like it will come natural. Like, people will just understand, right? So I think that's what we struggle with right now. It's taking us a little bit to get that mission statement put together, because we're trying to, I feel like we already walked the walk, talked the talk. Now it's like, how do we write that?
Yeah.
How do we write that on paper? Because it's so
because
different.
It's never been written before.
It's so different.
Yeah.
But it's key that vulnerability-based trust. I trust you from day one until you give me a reason not to. That's what we have to start doing in law enforcement. That's what we have to start doing in organizations, because we don't have time. We don't have time to mess around and try to earn each other's trust, right? Because from day one, this is what just blows my mind. And I obviously don't think the way I do because I've, just had it right the whole time, right? There's lots of trials and many, many, many errors. that I've experienced in my career, just a short career, but I expect you from day one, just because you signed on to this organization, you took your oath, you serve. I expect you from day one to respond to a critical incident and be willing to give your life, right? We tell each other all the time, we got each other's back, the thin blue line. We expect each other I expect you to be willing to give your life so that I can go home to my wife and kids at night. And I would do the same for you, automatically, up front, no questions asked.
Mm-hmm.
But you won't trust me. Tell me how we build anything healthy on that from the get-go, straight out the gate. That's what we're starting with.
But you know how it is. You get a rookie that comes on fresh from the academy, and you know what everybody there's saying. Out there with their feet propped up against the wall, yeah, old Joe started, I wonder what he's like. And then you hear FTO say things like, you got to earn your keep around here, like you don't just come in and automatically, earn our trust. And that said,
that's generational too.
It's generational.
That's the generational change we have to make.
If I had a dime for every time I heard that.
And don't get me wrong, do I think you got to earn your keep as the new guy, as the boot? Yes,
right,
absolutely. It's tradition, but you have to sell it a different way with the newer generations and coming on to the workforce these days. Like, you can't do that. Like that, you're not going to get a positive response out of that. What you do is you show them. You show them. That's what you do. So the day one, the FTO, it needs to be doing those things. So if you expect the new guy, I say boot a lot, because I do have a lot of
that's generational too, in case you didn't know.
It is. I tell a lot of people, I feel like I should have been a cop 50 years ago.
Yeah.
So I'll say boot. But if you expect the boot to vacuum the PD without being asked, and that's the role for the new guy, then guess what? Day one, FTO needs to start doing it himself,
right?
And leading by example. I think that's how we get the new generations coming into the workforce to respond to those things, right? We're just not good at doing that. As a whole, law enforcement, we're just not good at taking care of each other, setting good examples, leading, right? Being good partners. We lost that concept, people used to ride around 2-man all the time. Like you would build a bond there. It's hard. And you think people trusted each other then? I would imagine it was a whole lot easier when you spend 8-12 hours of your shift in a car with somebody. When you had a partner, we've lost that concept. We've divided ourselves. We've withdrew from the group. We've withdrew from the team. There is no aspect of team. Yeah. You've got to earn it. You got to earn to be on this team. Well, in my opinion, if we hire you to be a part of our organization, you're immediately a part of the team. You don't have nothing to prove. Nothing to prove. That's, I think, that goes to ego. That's a whole different issue. Law enforcement can learn a lot from the fire service, and I think if we would sit back and evaluate that, because I tell you what, they're doing it right for the most part.
I would have to agree with that. Freaking, those guys have some camaraderie, and family. Like, it drives me nuts when I hear things like, I dog it all the time because I think it's crap. But when I hear the thin blue line, like,
I just
don't brotherhood, the thin blue line, but the thin blue line, the blue is us, like, and we're in the center, like we're there standing in the face of evil, the dark things, right? But then when people say thin blue line brotherhood, again, like you said, I got your back, brother. And then when you look at that, and then you turn over and you look at the thin red line, like you just said, like it's not the same night and day.
Yeah, it carries weight.
And I think you want to know why that is. One of the reasons why I think that is because those guys spend time with each other.
Yes.
Right? They don't show up for a shift and get, check out your equipment, get in your beat, I don't want to see you again, Like that's not what they do. They spend time with each other. And I think that's one of the reasons, I don't know if that's the main reason, but I know that's a big reason is that they do it a lot different. And you did fire stuff for a little while. So,
it's completely different, and it's a generational culture that carries on in the fire service. Like it's so hard to explain, but I can tell you they're doing it right. Obviously nothing's ever going to be perfect, right? So obviously like organizations will have their issues. But I just think that, we have far too many and we have no excuse for it. The job's already difficult. Like you just said, they spend all the time in the world with each other. We come into work, check on duty, get our gear, and we're out shagging calls. It's hard to spend time with each other, right? So that already creates barriers. So you have to put more effort into it. And honestly, like, you just have to put effort into making any organization healthy. It's not just going to happen overnight. And that's the problem. It circles back to leadership. And I don't know what it is. If it's generational, I just know I see it everywhere. People come and join our organization that, not even that. I've got, I know plenty of law enforcement officers where that's all you'll hear is that they're in a toxic org. The culture's toxic. This happened, that happened. It's the norm. Well, we've got to shake it up. We've got to be different. And that's the issue, is that I feel like right now the focus is like all these agencies want to be like there's a standard, right? Like,
oh, you were rolling me right in to what I.
So I was thinking about.
I have something in my mind I want to say.
Okay, well,
but you're right.
So right. So there's a standard. Everybody says this. If you get here, you've reached perfection. This is where you've got to be as an organization, as a successful law enforcement organization. This is where you got to be, and this is how you get there, right? There's this standard, and everybody's chasing the same thing. Let me ask you this: is that really the definition of? Is that really where we're trying to go? Is that how you become successful? Do you think? I read a lot on. Like corporate America, corporate leadership. Do you think that Amazon and SpaceX and Facebook and Twitter, all these big corporations, do you think they started off by saying, I want to do what they're doing? I want to do what they're doing.
Do you think they're chasing the Texas Police Chiefs Association accreditation program? Do you think those organizations are chasing that plateau?
Like I said, there's a standard.
That's it.
And there's agendas behind it. In my opinion, my personal opinion, this is not reflected.
Of course. Yeah, because and I've got nothing against wanting. I agree. There should be somewhat of a standard. We can't be rogue, right? So I agree with having certain standards and requirements, obviously, right? But when you have an accreditation program, such as like the Texas Police Chiefs Association accreditation program, fine and dandy, because there's some good policies in there. Like I think some of that stuff it's needed and it's okay. But here's my problem. You have an officer that's going through a divorce, maybe multiple officers. Hell, maybe you got a female officer and there's like 8 guys sleeping with her, like happened in Tennessee or whatever that was. Like, your organization can be on freaking fire when it comes to personnel issues, but what are you doing? Like, as a chief administrator, like, I want that round circle. That's the Texas Police Chief Association accreditation circle. I want it on my wall in the lobby. That's what I feel like. It's an appearance.
Image.
It's an image. It's what it looks like, but not what it is.
Yeah.
And your guys and your gals are on fire. They're going, living personal, their lives, their personal lives are hell, and you're seeing signs, or you should see signs. They're crying out for help, and I want that logo. It's an image.
Yeah. We're chasing the same thing. The problem with chasing the same thing right now is we're clearly doing it wrong. So somebody's got to start chasing something else, setting a new standard, defining what we should be doing, and take us back to just being decent. This job's not hard. It's really not. This job is challenging, but the basic fundamentals of the job is not hard. You could really teach anybody to push a radio car and shag calls, right? What you can't teach is heart, integrity, morals, ethics. You can't teach any of that. So we have to start looking for the right things and going after a different standard. The associations that offer, these guidelines and policies, I think there's a purpose for it, but I don't think that that's the defining purpose of what we should be doing as law enforcement. Right?
No, I agree. I do think there are purposes for it, because clearly you have to have policies, procedures, things should be, because if you don't, everybody's, again, I like to use the word rogue. Everybody's running around being rogue and do what they want. There's no checks and balances, and that's when you run into other problems. But the problem is I dare say, man, and I've met several chiefs that chase that accreditation, that specific, and I guess a lot of states have them, their versions, but I know a lot of chiefs that chase those things, and they're just so focused on that accreditation that everything else is going by the wayside. And if a problem comes up, say there's an incident, maybe a personnel issue, and that gets put in front of their, I have a meeting today for this, to get this, particular topic dealt with because it's part of the accreditation. They will take that personnel issue and they will put it, one of two things. Or they put it on the back burner, or they will deal with it in haste, impulse, and potentially an officer's career is ruined.
Definitely.
You know what I mean? Like, and I've seen that with these own two eyes. Personally, have seen it.
Yeah, we're too quick to write somebody off, right? So, and I think that's where I just go back to, I really think we have to reevaluate why we're here and what our purpose is. We've lost our purpose sometimes. And then reevaluate each other. But yeah, I do think that we're too quick to write people off because we're judging and making decisions based on what everybody else is doing, and clearly it's not working right now. Now, there's always an argument on the other side too. Like, I'm sure a lot of agencies are like, well, we're different. But are we?
Mm-mm.
If I was to go on a job posting site right now and look at, recruiting ads for law enforcement, you know how many I would find that are offering $10,000, $15,000 sign-on bonuses?
And you got to wonder why that is.
Why? Because, from where I sit, I signed up. I wanted to do this job for, my starting salary when I first started, and this wasn't that long ago, wasn't too much more than a $20,000 sign-on bonus, and that was for the year. Right? So nobody's getting in law enforcement to get rich or make money.
Right.
And if you are, you need to immediately find a different career, because that's you're not going to do it here, bud. You're just going to work every single day.
You run yourself into the ground.
Yeah, but so I think that's a sign, and I don't think we should be doing that. We're trying to put a Band-Aid on something, and really we shouldn't be throwing money to get people to come work here. I don't think that we should be good stewards of taxpaying dollars, and having to literally beg or offer that, that's a lot of money or pay. Obviously, the times are different. Like economic times are different. Like there's a lot of agencies that are well underpaid. We need to pay officers a decent living wage, but we don't need to pay people so much that's unrealistic, because we're trying to compete with our next door neighbor, because all of my guys are leaving and going there, guys and gals, or vice versa. We need to start looking at why are people leaving. Either one, we're hiring the wrong people to begin with, or two, we need to do some self-reflecting in the mirror.
I've always, you bring up a good point. Like, why the salary? And you're right. I mean, economically right now, it's a total disaster. And I don't know if we're getting to Israel and Hamas tonight, honestly, but that's fine. That's fine. But my point is, with that, I think things are not going to be getting better anytime soon. And so, but when you see hiring ads, the biggest thing on the hiring ad in big, bold, contrasting letters are what your salary is. And I think officers are deserving of pay. They have to make a decent living. They have a, they have a challenging job, and finances shouldn't be a stress. But it usually is, right? But why don't we just? Why is that? Like you said, why is that our recruiting point? Why isn't it? Why don't we replace those numbers with integrity, trust, community, justice, and
the receipts to go with it.
Exactly.
The reputation to go with it. You know why money's a problem? Money becomes a problem when people get so fed up that they feel like they're not being heard. This is my opinion. They feel like they're not being heard, or they're afraid to have those uncomfortable conversations, and they need something tangible. Right, so integrity or leadership issues or other organizational issues. Sometimes that's not a tangible thing that they can place it to and tie their complaints and disgruntlement to. But money's easy. Well, what happens when we try to fix the monetary value, and we do, and we still got the same problem? We have to start looking at different things and through different sets of lenses. And maybe it's going to take different people to do that. Because we are living in different times. It's clear as day, right? And it's, sometimes I get down. Sometimes I get a little down thinking about it, man, because I just have so much passion for this job. And there's multiple reasons, that I could go into my childhood, just lots of things from life that I've gone through. And then, I get into this profession, and it doesn't change me in the beginning, but it eventually helped make me a better man, made me and helped me see the priorities in life.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I think me knowing you and as your friend and knowing you all these years, and you may disagree with this, I don't know, but I think you getting out of law enforcement, going through what you did in the beginning, then getting out of law enforcement and then getting back in. And for me too, because I did it, I think that truly gives you that different perspective, those different lenses that doesn't you know what I mean? Because you have guys that stay in it all these years. They never have a break. That's just what they do. That's what they've known their entire freaking life. That's what I knew from 18 years old all the way to 32, 33, whatever it was. And that's all I knew, right? So I take this break, and it was a roller coaster, man. There were some real low points, there were some high points, whatever. But for you too, I think getting out of the profession and seeing it, my ex-wife tells me all the time. I was a miserable person, dude. I've talked about it a little bit, but I was just miserable. Not even a good person, in my opinion, for the longest time. And then when we divorced in 2019, naturally you're at each other's throat when you divorce anyway, but, man, I just thought I couldn't do any wrong. I'm never wrong. I'm always right. And I was just miserable, and I couldn't pinpoint my misery. I'm going to church, I'm trying to do these right things, and then when I get out of the profession, things change for me all the way around in my life. And I specifically mentioned my ex-wife because, we had to co-parent together, and she tells me to this very day, I don't know if she watches this. If you do, I still hate you. Kidding, but no, she tells me to this very day, hey, I don't think we would have such a good co-parent relationship, and we do. It blows my mind how well we can get along and do what's best for our children. I fully believe had I stayed in the profession, and she agrees, it wouldn't be like this. And just getting out, detoxing from who I was, unpacking all the issues that I had from within, the profession, and then my personal issues, going to therapy. And I went to therapy. There's a stigma attached to therapy. People think that that's not, that therapy just means something's wrong with you. I am a big supporter of therapy because it took me doing all of these things to truly, and I still struggle, dude. I'm a man, number one. Number two, I'm just, that typical type A, and I'm a cop. So many things go against you as a man anyway, but I fully believe that the reason you and I actually can share a lot of the same vision is because we got out of it. We had negative experiences. We got out. We dealt with those things, and then we got back in, and we're like, okay, like we want to change. I'll just talk about it, right? We want to truly affect change where we are, like grow where you're planted. Like here we are. At the end of the day, do I want to have, $2 million in my bank account and be sitting on freaking a beach every day? Yeah. Like, I want to live the Elon Musk life, but that's not what God's given me. Like this is what God's given me. And until it changes, I have big aspirations for Failing Justice, and will those things ever come to fruition? I don't know. But all that aside, grow where you're planted. Be the light. Be the change. And I feel like I'm able to do that better now than I was, say, 2018, 2019, and I believe it has to do with the fact that I got out, and I feel the same for you. I don't know if you feel that or not, but
yeah, I do think sometimes taking a break helps.
And that's another thing too. Driving yourself into the ground for an organization. I've done it. I see people do it all the time. That's why I tell you, like, time off. If all these chiefs and lieutenants and captains and whatever can take their vacations, like, so can we, because we have to rejuvenate. We have to recoup and get ourselves right, because at the end of the day, we can get shot tomorrow and die. Our position will be filled in less than 6 months. And so
yeah,
I think taking care of yourself, not selfishly, but that's frowned upon in our organization. Like if somebody wants to have a day off, right?
It's not frowned upon these days. People do it plenty.
Like, hey, I want to have this day off because, my kid has a soccer game or whatever. Well, you're going to get it covered, like, and you have to look at, there's a lot of facts and circumstances behind some of those things, but I'm saying in general, like, we have to be able to take care of ourselves, because historically that's not, you marry the job, eat, breathe, sleep it. That's what it is. And then that's who you become.
I guess I'll offer a response. It's getting pretty late, so I'll offer a response to that, and I do agree with you to an extent, that you do have to take care of yourself. Absolutely. But right now, in my perspective, from where I sit right now, if you want to be about the change, if you want to build a different culture, if you want to build a healthier work environment for your officers, remember that they're coming from, they might not be coming from that, right? They might not be used to that. To build that change and build that culture, somebody's gotta prove. Somebody's gotta step up and do it, right?
I agree with you.
And so I know you tell me all the time, well, you've got to,
but you can't do it at your own demise. What good are you going to be to that agency and bring that change to those officers if you are just running on fumes?
Yeah, you gotta take a break. But when you're a smaller agency, like, bigger agencies might be able to afford to do that. But when you're a smaller agency, the next, the future leaders of those organizations, especially small ones, when you're already in a staffing crisis and you're already trying to, build a healthy work environment. You want your people that you've invited into your organization and said, we'll take care of you if you come work here. We want you here. If you're going to do that and mean it, right? Be true to your word when you say we'll take care of you, then you got to be ready to step up and take care of them and let them have time off.
No, I agree with that.
Let them have a break. I guess, I get passionate about it because, I get passionate about where we're trying to go. And, I would relate it to, I'm trying to like sacrifice myself to, some cause, like, tomorrow they could say, hey, we don't need you here no more, and replace me. They could replace me. But yeah, it wouldn't be without trying. I tell another thing I tell people when we bring them into our org, because I feel so passionate about the mission and the culture, is that we have to get back to doing things for the right reasons. I give a shit.
Remember what Rob used to say?
I was about to say I'll give an old shout out to my first chief. And to this day I still remember it. He said, he asked me, what's your definition? How would you define integrity? I was like, being a good person, right? Brand new cop, right? And having a meeting with the chief.
I don't even know what integrity is.
Are you trying to tell me I'm already fired? And so I gave him some answer, right? And it was just, I'm sure it's some answer that he expected, but then he turned around and he said, well, this is mine. It's doing the right thing doing the right things at the right time for the right reasons.
Yeah.
And so we have to start getting back to doing that. It's simple. Just treat people with respect, right? Just because it says it in the law doesn't mean you got to act on it. Officer discretion. Be relatable, human. Just do your job and treat everybody with the basic human decency that they deserve.
Yeah.
Let's start there.
Man, 2 hours goes by really quick.
It's way longer than I expected.
Well, yeah, and I knew that this was going to be, that would go this long, and that we would have impactful conversation, and I'm thankful for it. I'm glad that you came today. Unfortunately, I had actually had a whole segment planned for to talk about Israel and the Palestinian conflict right now, and we just don't have time to get in that. All I will say on that note is this: pray for those people over there. Pray for all of them. There's some barbaric, horrible things going on over there, and just pray for all the nations involved, our country, that we all make the right decisions and find some common ground. That's all I'm going to say about that, dude. Thanks for coming on the show. Hopefully I get you back on again. Definitely good conversation. I want to say to all my listeners, though, as I always say, you got to share this stuff. You got to like it, share it, tell your friends, tell your family, tell your coworkers, tell your acquaintances. All these people, we have to get these. We have to get this word out. It's very important, and I think all of you, all my loyal listeners who download the podcast, who watch it on YouTube, Facebook, all the things, I want to thank all of you. If anybody's still watching, for tuning in tonight. I really, really appreciate you guys. Keep in mind, we're on all social media platforms: YouTube, X, formerly known as Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, the website, www.thisisfailingjustice.com. And hope you guys have a good rest of your week, good, safe weekend. And we'll see you next week for the Failing Justice podcast.
This is Failing Justice.